Yesterday, Elestrals had its last big tournament of the Daybreak meta. There were 84 people in this tournament, including me, and somehow after a long day of play, I managed to beat out 73 of them, earning myself an 11th place spot and just barely bubbling out of top 8. So I thought it would be a good idea to go through my list and explain how the cards performed. So without further ado, this is Zoo. Our first card on the list is 3 copies of the most bannable bunny, Aster Rabbit. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really see this card for some reason. I maybe played it 2 or 3 times, but every single time I was able to play it, it gave me the advantage and honestly even won me the game by finding me a 1-of Earthquake one time. So Aster Rabbit is a phenomenal card and will always stay in the deck. Next, we're playing a pretty sizable water package, starting with 2 copies of Foamy. With the distinct lack of removal in the game right now, Foamy is able to thrive, acting as either a beater that you can continuously just attack with and not be punished, or simply a defensive wall that eventually your opponent has to attack over, and you can easily punish them by sending out whichever Elestral best fits the situation. One of the cards that we're able to grab with Foamy, and also our only other 3 of Elestral other than Rabbit, is 3 copies of Eddie. Now Eddie, I'll be honest, while most of the time he does perform extremely well due to the fact that he can play around everything and almost beat out every 1-drop Elestral, but with how prevalent Galaxy is in the meta right now, it extremely nullifies Eddie's power. So honestly, I think I would probably move him down to probably a 2-of, because he didn't really perform that well, and I tended to side him out a frequent amount. Our next Celestial is 2 copies of Galaxy. Honestly, I would make this 3 rather than 2, just because of how prevalent other Galaxies are in the meta right now. And unfortunately, the best counter to Galaxy is Galaxy itself. So running 2-of is kind of not all that great, and you'll see it later, but I do have one in the sideboard that constantly came in, so I had 3-of. So I would put Eddie down to 2 and Galaxy up to 3 if I was playing it again. Our next Water Celestial is 1 copy of Moostation. Moostation is fantastic because it can easily beat over Galaxy, it can pair with your own Galaxy, or it can work as a fantastic beat stick. Doing more math later on, I would like to get this up to 2. I'm just not quite sure what I would take out at the moment, but Moostation worked fantastically over the quick case of the tournament. Our last Water Celestial is 1 copy of Dratagua. Dratagua is great for the late game to allow you to heal back necessary spirits, but honestly having an abundance of Dratagua isn't really necessary. I felt like having this one was pretty good in the main deck. There were some cases where I sided the one that is in the side that we'll talk about later, but that was really when I felt like we were having grindy games, but for the most part, 1 Dratagua is fine. Next up, we have 2 copies of Specteris. Specteris is fantastic because not only does it shut down Galaxy, it shuts down Viscerus and also Foamy, which are 3 very prevalent cards in the meta right now. Very often I stuck my 3rd Specteris that's in the sideboard in against Galaxy matchups in for one of the Eddies that I would side out. Next, we're running 2 copies of Viscerus. Viscerus' ability to possibly work as a 2-for-1 summon is extremely strong right now in this meta of just summoning 1, beating over an Elestral, summoning 1, beating over an Elestral. The ability to get a 2-for-1 is extremely relevant, especially if you're able to protect both of them, which is why Viscerus is limited to 2 at the moment. Next, we're playing 1 copy of Elechick, because Elechick's ability to work as a 7-attack beater with either Demeter or Zeus is fantastic. Not to mention that both Demeter and Zeus are currently limited right now, so this just gives you an extra copy of either one you might need at the moment. And our final Celestial in the main deck is 1 copy of Lavalith. Lavalith has already been limited to 1, showing how strong it is. However, in this tournament, it was very prevalent for me, because very often if I had it in my opening hand, I could easily just expend a draw and bait an opponent into allowing me to cast out Lavalith for essentially free at that point. Before we continue the video, I do want to remind everybody that I will be giving away a Reverse Stellar Exaltus at 100 subs. All you have to do is like the video and subscribe to the channel, and you will be entered to win this beautiful card. Without further ado, let's get back to the video. To start off our runes, we have one copy of Demeter. We're only running one because it's limited to one. And honestly, even though it is a very strong card that allows us to beat over stuff, it's not nearly as potent as Zeus's, so I didn't really end up grabbing it too much because I tended to go for Zeus every time that I found Elestrals. Speaking of Zeus, we're running one copy of Zeus. Zeus is better than Demeter due to the fact that he'll allow all of your Elestrals to hit over an opposing Elestral rather than one like Demeter does. To pair with our Zeus, we're running 3 copies of Cryoblast. I'll be honest, I would move this down to 2 copies due to how prevalent the water package is right now in the meta, but Cryoblast is still a fantastic card, especially when you pair it with Zeus. Next, we're playing one copy of Earthquake. Earthquake is phenomenal because it's unconditional removal, and you play it if you can fit the spirits in. Our last piece of invoke removal is one copy of Resting on Your Laurels. This is very strong to help you come back from situations which you're behind in. Also, a very strong card against Viscerus, which is played everywhere right now. We're running 3 copies of Ambrosia because healing is broken in this game because everything costs your life to play, so Ambrosia's kind of always a 3 of. That's just how it is. And for our counter rune package, you have your typical 12 counter runes, starting with 3 copies of Gorgon's Gaze. Gorgon's Gaze is here to shut down literally anything an opposing Elestral might want to do. Next, we have 3 copies of Poison Tipped Arrow. This is here for protecting your Elestrals with the -2 attack and also phenomenal removal. Next, we have 3 copies of Shield of Achilles. This was actively my strongest performing counter rune of the game. Everybody's sleeping on Shield right now, claiming it doesn't resolve. This card won me game after game after game, and I would recommend not sleeping on Shield of Achilles anymore. Finally, we have 3 copies of Tsunami. Now, this is probably the first counter rune that I would cut down. I'd just cut it down to 2, honestly, just because of how prevalent the water package is at the moment. But Tsunami is still a phenomenal card, so I wouldn't completely cut it. Instead, I would probably just put a Dense Fog or something in here to shut down a lot of the water cards that are being played at the moment. That's it for the main deck. Now, moving on to the Spirit deck, we'll be playing one copy of Flurmine. This is here for our 3 Cryoblast. Now, normally I don't like playing one Spirit for 3 cards, however, we really didn't have the room to squeeze in a second one, and it actually ended up working out okay, because most of the time, by the time I had shut down my Cryoblast and drew another one, I would have Ambrosia to be able to recoup that Spirit that I needed. So it actually worked out okay, just having the one Flurmine. For the rest of our Spirit deck, we have 2 Vipyros for our Lavaliths. We have 2 Owloon for our Spectaris, and also cards that you'll see in our sideboard. We have 3 Zaptor for our Rabbit, our Zeus, and our Elechick. We have 5 Terratlas for our Earthquake and our Viscerus, and also some cards that are in the sideboard. And then we have 7 Leviathan for our Water package. Now, moving on to the sideboard, the first part of it is just cards that I wanted to play more of in the main deck, but I really couldn't afford to fit it in there, with 1 copy of Spectaris. Spectaris, as mentioned before, is fantastic for shutting down the Galaxy meta, so if I played against a water deck, I would easily side the 3rd one in. We have 1 copy of Galaxy in the sideboard, because Galaxy is Galaxy's best cover, and the fact that Galaxy is everywhere means that you have to play stuff to beat out Galaxy, unfortunately. Next, we have 1 copy of Moostation. Moostation is also here for the Galaxy Water matchups, because it is a fantastic card against it. In case we had very grindy games, or we played against Healstall, we're running 1 copy of Dratagua and 1 copy of Sluggle in our sideboard. I'll be honest, the Sluggle never really came in, and Dratagua didn't come in too much. However, having both of them in the sideboard, I felt like was still a very good option in case we did need them. Next, we have one copy of Boombat. This was here for the big guy matchups, and I did bring it in, however, I never really drew into it, so I can't exactly say how Boombat performs since I never drew it at all, even though it did come in. We are also playing one copy of Moth Station in the sideboard. I thought that Thunder would be a lot more prevalent in the meta right now, and I figured this would be a good play to play around Arcolith. However, it didn't really pan out that I played against Thunder too much. This did work sometimes to get over rabbits or various galaxies, however, Moth Station didn't really come in too much. We also have one copy of Equal Links in our sideboard. This is for matchups where they just want to set a bunch of counter runes and kind of stall out. Equal Links, while being a fantastic card that is strong enough that needs to be limited to one, with the Galaxy meta running around, you really do need your main deck to be able to counter it, so I wanted Equal Links in the side deck in case I felt like going in and pivoting into it was a good play. To pair with our Equal Links, we're playing an Argo package with 2 copies of Argo. Now, Argo is a very good card, but it doesn't really work when people know that you're playing it, so playing it in the sideboard as a jump scare is a very strong thing to do. To pair with our Argo, we'll be running one copy of Scythe of Demeter, one copy of Necklace of Harmonia, and one copy of Poison Tunic. I would swap out the Poison Tunic for a second copy of Scythe of Demeter because Scythe is extremely powerful, not only pairing well with any of your attackers, but also pairing well with your defenders because it gives the big defense buff. And our final card in the sideboard is 2 copies of Dense Fog. As I've stated a few times before, Galaxy's just kind of everywhere, so this is here to deal with that mainly. But also, a majority of Elestrals that are played right now are focusing heavily on their abilities, so Dense Fog can easily shut down pretty much anything that's not named Spectaris at the moment. Would you run this deck? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this, I do put out content like this daily, so make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any further content. I hope you all have a good day, and peace.